Welcome to the Revolution of Man podcast. I'm your host, Lance Cashion. This is episode 33, and my guest is Kevin Briggins from the Center for Biblical Unity. And we're going to talk about how to get to the truth when we're surrounded by propaganda, information operations, and manipulation, particularly online and in the media. So I think you're going to enjoy this podcast. Please don't forget to share it, like it, and make a comment. Thanks so much. God bless, and enjoy episode 33 of the Revolution of Man podcast with Kevin Briggins. See ya. And I stumbled across Kevin through Monique and Krista, and I've known Monique. I guess I met her in 2021 at a Colson National Conference, and then my organization brought her and Krista in 2023 or 2024 for a talk, a lecture, and a Q&A on critical social theories. And so my family's been connected to Center for Biblical Unity for a number of years, and we're supporters and love the work that you guys do. And then when you joined the team, I'd been watching your podcasts and videos with Krista and Monique, and I was like, this guy's interesting. I love it. And you're interested in a lot of the same things I'm interested in. And you
Yes,
have a clear view from your background, which I'd like for you to share a bit about here in a minute. But that's what you were talking about. And obviously what Krista and Monique are talking about resonates with me because I see it and have done a lot of trainings and lectures on critical social theory and on worldview. And that's kind of my thing, but you guys have been a huge resource for myself, my family, and in our community here in Fort Worth. So I didn't know if you were aware that you guys had that big of a reach in this city. It's a deep reach, and that's what I want.
Did not know that.
So we're grateful for
praise
you.
God, though.
Yes, sir.
Praise God.
But yeah, Kevin, just give me a little bit of background, your experience, military, you've got pastoral and elder experience, church experience, outreach experience. And then now you're working with Center for Biblical Unity. So tell me a bit about that.
Yeah. So military background. I'm retired from the Air Force, 22 years. I spent that time as an intelligence analyst. It was the war on terror, so clearly focused on the Middle East, focused on terrorism, jihadist groups, things like that. I got my degree in Middle Eastern Studies for that reason. And so just heavily involved in intelligence work, homeland security, terrorism, all of those types of things. The vast majority of my career was actually spent supporting special operations in, as we like to say, hunting down bad guys,
Right.
high value targets and doing those types of things. And so that was very rewarding work. But that intel portion of my career has really served me well in analyzing culture and society and the things that go on. From a ministry standpoint, I have been serving as an elder since 2017 now. And so in two different churches. And even before that, I was heavily involved in various types of ministry work. I would say around 2005, 2006, I became very interested in theology. I became, instead of just like someone who went to church, I became someone who just really read the word, studied the word, and just kind of dove in and became knowledgeable of what I believed and why I believed it. And so that's kind of my background in ministry. You mentioned outreach. I've done a lot of outreach. The first church I was in as an elder, my area of responsibility was local outreach and local missions. And we were in a urban inner city environment. And you can imagine the challenges that come with that, with trying to be a church that ministers to the community. And so I was very involved there. I've served on the board, school boards. I've served on the boards of other organizations. I currently sit on the board of an organization that is for poverty relief,
Okay.
and for people in generational poverty. Just, trying to do the Lord's work and wherever He places me. And so yeah, that's kind of my background. And as you mentioned, I'm the managing director for the Center for Biblical Unity. And like as you kind of alluded to, what we do is we help Christians and churches deal with tough cultural and social issues through a biblical worldview. You mentioned, the critical social theories and things like that. We all remember 2020 and how the world went crazy and everybody's looking for answers. No one knows what's going on. They're just told they have to post a black square and they have to go march and protest, and they don't
Right.
understand why, you know? And so what the Center for Biblical Unity does, we help people understand these ideologies and why they are not compatible with a biblical worldview. And so we try to be a shelter and a home for those who are just looking for understanding and clarity. A lot of people will know something's not right, but not know how to articulate it or what it is.
Hmm.
We just try to help them make sense of what's going on in the world.
Yeah, I remember in around 2020, you mentioned the black boxes and everything, and I watched that just spread like wildfire inside outside the church.
Yep.
And what I found was the people were looking for answers to the issue, and
Hmm.
the church, most churches just weren't providing the biblical resources to um, confront or at least understand the issue and then confront it from a biblical worldview, and in order to bring back people to the truth. And so people were just reaching out into the culture,
Yep.
Ibram X. Kendi's books.
Yep.
uh, you had
White
Robin,
fragility.
yeah, White Fragility,
Uh,
Robin DiAngelo, like that.
yep.
That's what, and there were Christian groups that were reading through those books, trying to find answers. They were good-hearted Christians looking for answers
Yeah.
because the church wasn't speaking into the issue and then equipping them to understand it from a biblical worldview. And that's really how I stumbled on you guys, because I was doing some research and writing a a basically a book summary for our church on white fragility, because I
Mm.
was seeing it online. People were recommending it. I'm like, wait a
Yep.
second, my background is in anthropology, sociology, and I had a bunch of neo-Marxists as professors. So I recognized it. I just didn't
Yeah.
think it would get out of the lab, so to speak. I
Yeah.
thought it'd stay in the classroom, but nope, here it comes.
Yep.
But it was really interesting because people were really, and again, most of the Christians I know were people of goodwill. They were just looking for answers. And
Yes.
I think now, thanks to you guys and other ministries like Center for Biblical Unity, y'all have, like you said, it's like it's safe place for
Mhm.
people to go have conversations, but also get practical resources, which then turns into conversations that they can have with
Yeah.
others that don't share a biblical worldview, or help Christians orient themselves around the biblical
Yes.
worldview. So,
Yes.
yeah. So,
Um, yeah, and I'll say too, so the church I was in prior to 2020, we dealt with this stuff before George Floyd, before 2020. This stuff hit our church hard. And so I had to learn what it was I was dealing with. I had to go out and find resources, and it was very hard. It wasn't a whole lot of, there was no Center for Biblical Unity. You
right.
just kind of had to piece it together. I didn't know what this was my friends were talking about, what they had gotten a hold of. I just knew it sounded very postmodern. It was filled with a lot of like bitterness. And all of a sudden, they went from being happy and full of joy and living in community with everyone to all of a sudden they were oppressed, and it's like, what is going on? What is this? And I later came on to find that, hey, this is critical race theory. And once I found the ideology, it all made sense. Um, but the reason that I started working with the Center for Biblical Unity once I found them is because I realized how important of a resource it was. Because when I was dealing with it, it was just nothing out there. And so by the time 2020 comes around and George Floyd happens, the Center for Biblical Unity exists. People are finding it. People are looking for answers. And yeah, I was just happy to come along and help them with what they had started. So
yeah, it's a great organization, and just love the work that y'all do, and just the clarity, and and I always recommend the videos and listen to the podcast because there's joy too. Like, you guys have fun, y'all
we
laugh
do.
a lot and poke fun at each other, and it's
Yes.
just like, it's just regular Christians that have experience and knowledge in this area talking about it, and it doesn't get so academic that it's hard for them to understand. It's
Yeah.
just make it accessible, and it makes it to where Christians are really being equipped by the ministry, and I'm one of those. So I'm appreciative of the ministry. I think really kind of the reason why I wanted to talk to you is I'd been listening to several of your podcasts with Chris and Monique, and
Mhm.
you started getting into the propaganda, psyops, information operations, radicalization of people, and I know enough to be dangerous in those areas. I've got friends, former military, and
Yeah.
I nerd out on General Petraeus and these guys writing
Yeah.
uh, counterinsurgency documents that are like 200 pages long, and I'm just
Yeah.
reading through those, and counter surveillance, like that stuff
Yeah.
is really interesting
It's
to
cool
me.
stuff. It's
It is,
cool.
and
Yeah.
but really, what intrigues me is the information kind of operations and what we call psyops. Now that gets
Mhm.
thrown around everywhere. Everything's a psyop. People
PsyOps.
say that,
Yes.
and we're in a
Yes.
propaganda war, and I believe that is true. But
Yeah.
what I really want to do on a serious note is help brothers and sisters in Christ that
Yeah.
are on social media, that are reading all the media, and they're seeing all this occur, be able to help them define reality. What is truth? What is falsehood? What is real? What isn't
Mhm.
real? How they're being manipulated, and then, okay, how do they respond as Christians from a biblical worldview? And I know that's a
Yeah.
broad subject there, and I don't want to take up 8 hours of your day, but just for an hour is help. Let's go down that road of kind of defining some of the terms, and then how are these type of things? Is it really happening,
Yeah.
and who's doing it? And then, yeah, let's just talk about that, and really bringing in your expertise, because intelligence is your background, especially with
Yeah.
the special operations. That's what you
Yeah.
guys do. So,
That's what we do. Yeah. The first thing I would tell Christians to do is slow down. Um, Slow down. I'm gonna use something that happened today as we're recording this. Today is the day where President Trump put out on Truth Social a video, and at the end of the video, there was an image of Michelle and Barack Obama as apes, and you can imagine how that is going right now. The
oh
firestorm
wow,
is causing. Yes. Um, and I first saw it, I was like, okay, this is weird. Why would he tweet this out or post this? And so I found the original video, and the original video is a different context. So it's like a minute long video about the 2020 election being stolen.
mm-hmm.
Then at the very end, this image pops up, or animation pops up with the Michelle and Barack uh, depicted as apes, and then just goes off. It's like 2-3 seconds, and it's completely unrelated to the video. And I was like, that is so weird. Like, it doesn't make sense. I don't know why he would post this, or whoever made this video would put that at the end of it. That just makes no sense. Well, what I've learned is that's Obama video is the start of a second video. So what you had is somebody did a screen capture of the video about election theft, and at the end of the video, it auto played to the next video, which is this another minute long video of various political figures as animals. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a completely separate video, and so whoever screen captured it got like 2 seconds of the next autoplay video, right?
Right.
And so that's what it is. But that's not what's being told. What's being told is a screen capture of Michelle and Obama, uh, and then saying, this is what President Trump posted. I woke up this morning to Christians already apologizing and condemning.
Right.
And I'm like, you didn't even give time to see and find out more information. You were already quick to respond. And so what I want Christians to do is slow down. You got to remember during 2020, yeah, or even before 2020, whether it was Trayvon Martin in 2012 or whether
Mm-hmm.
it was um, Mike Brown in 2014, the hands up, don't shoot. Everybody is trying to force you to a position really quick. You have to speak out. Silence is violence and all of this type of stuff. And it's like, no, you can take your time and figure out, okay, let me figure out what's going on. Typically what you see with these movements and propaganda is an emotional appeal and a call to action, right? And so um, the best thing Christians can do is to not feel this pressure or this sense of urgency to respond right away every time something happens, because it's good to get more information. And so with the President Trump thing today, I was able to gather that information and then make a post and like, hey, everyone, this is what's going on. Um,
Yes.
we can say, you can have is that other video racist or whatever. But in terms of what the president posted or was intending to post with the video about the 2020 election being stolen, that's completely separate from this next autoplay video, which we can all see how that could happen. And I don't think anybody believes the president auto captured the video himself. Someone clearly did, a staffer or whatever. But yeah, it's good to slow down, take our time, and then figure out what's going on. Um, like I said, appeals to emotion are a big thing. I'll use another example is what we're currently going through in Minneapolis, and I've been trying to warn people, hey guys, don't get caught up in this. Because one thing we've learned, especially since I keep referencing 2020 because it was so pivotal and it was so obvious what was going on, was this um, appeal to Christian ideas and Christian empathy, and Christians must speak out for justice. Um, there's this in Minneapolis. It is, oh, we're called to love our neighbor. We're called to, to take care of the stranger and the immigrant and all of these different things. It's like, wow, all that is true. How does that apply to immigration enforcement? Right?
Right.
How does that apply? Does the government have a right to protect its borders? Does the government have a right to determine who is in the country and who is not? If someone is here illegally and they're getting detained, is that an injustice? Right? These are the questions we have to ask instead of this emotional appeal of they're deporting families, they're separating children, right? It's appeals to emotions, right? To get you
Right.
to feel a certain way, and then to get you to speak out. And we see the protests, you see the people out in the streets, and I've just tried to warn Christian, do not allow yourself to get sucked into this. Do not allow
Mhm.
yourself to get, pulled into this. If there's an injustice going on, yes, speak up about it, you know. But the idea that the government is enforcing immigration laws in and of itself is not an injustice, right? And so it's just about staying level headed, asking the right questions, and not allowing yourself to be emotionally manipulated into a position. And that can happen on both sides of the aisle. We, as Christians, know we tend to see what the left is doing, but even on the political right, about a month ago, I wrote an article about the America First movement, and
I read that. Yeah.
yeah, I'm an American First guy. That's my life. Um, but what people are doing is, and this is another aspect of, we talk about propaganda, is slogans, right?
Mhm.
America first. Yeah, sign me up. Black Lives Matter. Absolutely. I agree with that statement. But what is behind the statement? Like, what is the ideology? What is the belief? What are they pushing? What are they trying to get you to do and believe in? Um, and so, yeah, I, I'm America first. But when I looked at what they were actually teaching or promoting or putting behind that slogan, it wasn't things that I agreed with, you know. or wanted to stand with. It was largely basically an anti-Israel position. And so
Mm,
instead of saying anti-Israel, it is America first. That's just marketing. That's just and it gets you wrapped up. And Christians and we like, yeah, America first, absolutely. But I can be America first without believing that America is controlled by the Jews, right?
mm,
and
right.
that and that we need to, separate ourselves and detach ourselves from the evil Zionist influences in America. Like that's what that is. That's a completely separate topic. It has nothing to do with America's overall interest being put forth by an administration. And so just saying all that, it is slow down, don't get caught up in your emotions. Do not feel pressure to act out or speak immediately. Um, and then don't get caught up in slogans. You have to just really examine what is behind the slogan. We saw, like I said, we saw so many people get caught up in the Black Lives Matter because Christians are good people. We're good people. We love people, and we want the world to see us as that. And it is very tempting for the world. I say tempting. It is very easy for the world to manipulate us into certain positions by appealing to our goodness, our um, I would say this too, our fear of repeating past failures. We can
Sure.
talk about the church during the civil rights movement. That is constantly weaponized against Christians today, especially white Christians. And this pressure to be on the right side of history, to not, you know, be the people who didn't see it fast enough or move fast enough or with enough zeal. And so without even thinking, Christians are out in the streets with Black Lives Matter t-shirts on marching. And it's like, have you checked out the website? Right.
You know what they want to do to the church and the family,
Yes. um, but it's also out of love. You got your coworkers who are affected by it or who are emotional about it, and their emotion is sucking you into it. Um, there's a lot of it's been several books written on the idea of empathy or toxic empathy, right?
like Joe
Um,
Rigney's books
Joe
have been,
Rigney's,
yeah.
Ali Stuckey,
Hmm.
um, and basically what they're describing is this idea of getting sucked up into someone else's emotions. And so if I really care about someone and they're really emotional and they're basically wanting you to go stand with them and march with them and otherwise it's like a sign of you don't care about them. It's very easy for us who are good people and good hearted and we love people and we love those around us to allow ourselves to get sucked into their emotions. And now we're not thinking, we're not objective, we're simply caught up in the emotion. Um, and that is what is happening today. It's all around us, it's in your social media feed. Um, Everything is designed to push you into a certain position. Um, and it was kind of not harmless, but when it was marketing for you to buy something, it's like, okay, that's one thing. I we've all had it where we're talking about something, then we go on social media and we see an ad for it.
That's
And we're
right.
like,
My phone's
yeah,
listening to me.
yep.
Yes.
And so when you think about that, that can be as nefarious, but at the end of the day, that's marketing. But what about when it's political? What about when they're using the algorithms to force you into a political belief or message? That's where I think people just aren't aware of that their social media feed is not reality. It can give you a glimpse into some things that's going on. I'm always on social media. I spend a lot of time on X because I want to know what people are talking about. But at the same time, I know that just because I see a lot of protest videos in my feed doesn't mean that the whole world is protesting. Um, it's the same thing with the police shootings. Just because you're being fed a lot of police shootings, or in this case today, ICE um, violations or you know arrest, doesn't mean that that's the norm or that's what's happening everywhere or often. You're just being fed that in your feed. Um, And so it's just stepping back, don't get emotional, don't go to post something and comment, um,
Right.
and just take a deep breath and what we say, touch grass. Go, what is reality? What is your life really? What are you really experiencing in your world? Not in your screen in front of you, but in the world around you, in your family, your friends, your workplace. What is the norm, right? What is going on? And if those things aren't affecting your life, then it's not saying that none of that stuff is important, but just be aware of what is real in reality and what is just on your screen, you know? And I just, I mean, everyone deals with that, but my heart is for Christians because it's not that we're more gullible or anything. It's just we're good people and we want to love people. And that gets played on. It
It
gets played
does.
on by the media, and they understand it. They know what they're doing. That's why they use the words that appeal to us, like justice, um, oppression, the oppressed. These are things that appeal to us, and you see many Christian leaders jumping on the bandwagon and pushing the same types of things because there's a temptation to believe that if Christians are just better people, then the world will love us. And it's just counter to what Jesus tells us,
That's
you know?
true. That made me think, I can love my neighbor, but my neighbor's a criminal. I can love my neighbor while he's in prison.
Yes, yes,
It's
exactly.
but those words, and you mentioned slogans because it seems like these slogans, you'll say America first or make America great again or whatever slogan gets thrown
Mhm.
out there. And I'm not a big fan of slogans because of this, because then they get co-opted, like they come out as something
Yes.
that is goodwill and has the right definition and meaning to it,
Yep.
and then somebody comes along, a movement comes along and co-ops it, redefines it, puts it back out there, and you
Yep.
still think you're a part of this. You get sucked into it, but you're really talking about two different ideologies, but you're in the
Exactly.
same under the same umbrella because of the slogan. And that gets
Mhm.
really confusing for people, like the
It
America
does.
First or any of that,
That's the
because
one I was thinking of. Yes,
yeah,
because people are like, "No."
Christian nationalism. I
Yes.
found, I think, six or seven different definitions of what that
Yes.
means. One meaning Christian, patriots who love their family, God,
Mhm.
family, country, all the way over to, you know, people that are
We need a Christian prince and
yeah,
a theocracy.
or
Yes.
they're Christian white nationalists, so it becomes this
Yes.
race, but it's all
Uh-huh.
under that Christian
Christian nationalism.
nationalism, which that's why I
100%.
don't use the term for really
Yeah.
anything because there's no
Yeah,
definition.
same.
It can mean
Same, because
anything.
depending on what you mean by it, I'm like, yeah, I'm a Christian nationalist, depending on what you mean by it.
Yeah.
Uh, but usually it's meant in the most derogatory term. Usually it's the white Christian nationalist that is being deemed Christian nationalism. And yeah, that's just not a fair representation. But yeah, you're right. The America First slogan is a big one because that was something that was started by Trump, right? It
Right.
was America First. It was Make America Great Again, and it was America First.
Yeah, there's America
And
First Institute, which is
yeah,
is truly that kind of form and shape a platform of putting
yeah,
American interest first so that our nation would be safe, prosperous, and flourishing.
yeah, yeah. And then
So,
you had this rebrand of America First that was a group that was trying to counter the Make America Great Again movement because they weren't happy with the way President Trump was handling Israel and
right.
Gaza. And so, or the fact that he, hit the Iranian nuclear sites. And so they saw all of that is we're putting Israel interests first. And so they started this America First slogan and group and got hats but people who were with the old America First that was under Trump, they think it's the same thing. And it's like, no, this is not. That is not what this is.
It's been
Uh,
redefined,
it's
and
been
we're not
redefined.
even aware of it. Most of us.
Nope.
And
Nope.
then that's where the confusion comes in for the Christian, because then reality becomes so distorted and it disorients people. They're like, well, wait a second, what does this mean? Now I'm being called a racist or
Yeah.
whatever because I, you know, adhere to this slogan or this movement, but then the movement has been co-opted,
Hmm.
and you're not even, you get swept up on, it's almost like a riptide. You're out in the surf and everything's
Yeah.
fine and playing in the waves, and before you know it, you get pulled out into the ocean by this invisible tide,
Yeah.
or this current, and that seems to be, from my perspective, what happens to us. And I've been guilty of that. I've been a victim of that. I've been
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, I'm involved, and then I'm like, whoa, wait a second, I don't recognize these people.
Yeah.
They don't think
Yep.
like me. They don't think
Yep.
like a Christian, you know? Oh man. Well,
Yeah.
that's interesting. So as far as, because I'd gone down the rabbit trail, just on, I'd removed Instagram, and I've been off
Mm,
Facebook for years, but then I moved over to Instagram. But what I noticed with Instagram, particularly in the last couple of years, and now I've removed it from my phone, I'll post and I'll delete it
mhm,
because I was doom scrolling too much. But uh, a couple of things, I did some experiments when, like the Epstein thing, P. Diddy, and then Charlie Kirk. And
mm.
if you scroll and start like watching a video, it just feeds you more
Feeds
and
you.
more, and it takes you deeper, deeper. But then it
Yep.
becomes so bonkers. And that's the only, I mean, it's just like, what are they? And before you know it, you're in this rabbit hole or this black hole
Mhm.
of information. And you really have to stop, like you said, slow and be like, is any of this even real?
Yes.
um and that's one of those things that I with those things, I was like, this gets dark very quickly.
It
um
does.
Particularly on that platform. I haven't seen that as much on X. I just go there, similar to you, I go there to see what
Mm.
everybody's talking about, and then I log off before I contribute to the dumpster fire. So.
That's not a bad move, because it is a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I try to tell people, um, just be aware that, like I say, social media isn't real. Also be aware that there are many foreign actors who are trying to shape US policy by affecting US public opinion. Um, the war in Gaza was a big one. The whole genocide thing, that was all propaganda. You see influencers that won't deal with the facts, but they're just basically shouting slogans and sharing things to fit an agenda. Um, but it's just no critical thought behind it. And it's like, you're just pushing an agenda. You're not, influencers are getting paid to push certain agendas. I know it, and I'm convinced of it. They are not always pushing their real beliefs.
Hmm.
They're pushing what they're being told, either told to push by, higher people, pushing things, or they're actually being paid to push certain things. And people just need to be aware of it. Your favorite influencer isn't as genuine as you think. I'll give an example of someone that I respect. I've followed their work. I've a regular watcher, listener on YouTube, and that's Megan Kelly. I
Hmm.
thought Megan Kelly was basically a straight shooter. I can not just trust what she says, but yeah, I mean, I think she has very common sense takes, and she was basically authentic. That's the word I was looking for.
Right.
But then the Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson stuff happened, and she basically just tried to play dumb, or she tried to. It I'm like, nah, Megan, you're too smart. You are too smart. But for some reason, she did not want to burn those bridges for whatever, whether it was
Right.
friendship, whether it was this is a similar audience that I don't want to lose. But for whatever reason, she played it safe and defended them when they didn't deserve to be defended, and it just didn't make sense. And so that's what I lost to respect. I'm like, you're not as authentic as I thought. You're also playing the game in the business, right? Um, so like people like you and I, we don't have large platforms. But even if I had a large platform, you and I are rooted in a biblical worldview, and we care about what is true,
Right.
right? Um, and we think that others are too, and that's just not the case. They're not caring about what is true. they're selling something. They're pushing an agenda. They're trying to sway public opinion a certain way. Another great example of that, and I mentioned Tucker Carlson. Like I say, I'm a conservative. I've used to watch Tucker when he was on Fox and everything. Um, but his whole World War III, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're headed to World War III. This is going to happen. And me, in my background, analyzing the geopolitical space, I'm like, there's no chance of a World War III. There's no players, right? Russia, Ukraine isn't turning to World War III. And it was if we bombed Iran. That's what it was. We bombed Iran. I'm like, who's on the other side? Okay, you got the U.S. and NATO. We got the Western powers. Who's going to fight us? Iran is nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Russia's bogged down in Ukraine. They've already shown that they are a paper tiger. They can't even defeat the Ukrainians in a conventional war. And China has their own ambitions and their own goals that they're not going to throw away to save Iran. Like, there is no coalition on the other side to build this whole World War III picture. But yet Tucker Carlson is on X every day talking about World War III. If we bomb Iran, it's going to be World War III.
Right.
Thousands of troops are going to die. I'm like, none of this is true. None of it is true. And I was screaming from the rooftops. And then when we bombed Iran and nothing happened, did he come out and say he was wrong no, it just kind of fades away,
Right.
and it's because he knew he did not really believe it. What he was trying to do was shape U.S. foreign policy. That's what he was trying to do. And
What's real quick? What would somebody like Tucker Carlson? What would be the incentive to shape? Would that be people influencing him, money? I mean, obviously these
yeah. So there's rumors that he's gotten money from Qatar. And I don't think that's rumors. I think that's actually true. I've seen it in reports that when he started independent, he got money from Qatar. He's been in Qatar a lot recently. He's talked about how much he loves it. He's going to buy a house there. Like this, there is a Qatar influence there.
right,
But I also believe that Tucker has recently become an isolationist, right? And he doesn't want the U.S. in any foreign affairs, any foreign conflicts. He don't want any military action. And so he's espousing trying to make the public opinion against any type of military action by saying this is going to drag us into another Middle Eastern war. This is going to put us in World War III. And it's all just fear mongering that has no real chance of happening. But he's trying to shape public opinion to then shape U.S. foreign policy. And that's what foreign actors are doing all the time, whether it's Russia, China, they're all on social media using these bots to try to push U.S. public sentiment a certain way to then affect U.S. foreign policy. And it's hard to tell Christians how to be aware of that other than don't get caught up. Try to do as much homework on the topic as you can. I know everybody can't be, super engaged, and most people aren't.
right,
They watch the news, they might, scroll on social media when they get home after dinner or something, but they're just not super engaged. But many are, and they get swept up in it because they're so engaged. They're doom scrolling all the time,
right.
right? Um, or they watch Tucker all the time, and now they're just caught up because Tucker said it, and therefore, and I know everybody, doesn't have my background, can't be a geopolitical expert, but I don't know. It's just good to ask some questions sometimes, like who is going to be in this World War III that he's talking about? Like, we already know the United States has the most powerful military in the world. It's not even close. I mean, China's, they're a threat, but they're not there yet where we are. Um, and as Russia showed, it's one thing to have all the toys. It's another thing to be able to execute a war. Russia,
Right.
there's no reason Russia should be struggling with Ukraine based on the technological advances and the weaponry advances advantages that they have. But in terms of having the toys and actually being able to execute a war, yeah, there's no one close to us. And then you add in our NATO allies, and it's just not even close. And so the idea that some nation is going to basically commit suicide to go save Iran, the Iranian regime, if we hit their nuclear facilities, no, it just didn't make sense. And so, I guess I want people to just don't get riled up in a frenzy. Try to be level headed. Try to ask questions. Do your own homework. Google's your friend. It's not always right, but you can Google and ask some questions. You might get some links that
Particularly if you scroll
Uh,
down like the third or the fourth
yeah,
page, you get past
yes,
all the stuff they want you to see
yes,
and believe, and then you
yes.
can kind of get into some factual information. At least that's been my experience. I don't park on the front page. The first 10
Yeah.
links, I'm going next page,
Yep. Yep. Some other things to think about when it comes to race stuff. I'll tell people like this is one thing that I noticed in the articles. I'm gonna use the race stuff as an example, but this is anything you read.
Mhm.
Did the author prove their point? Right? Did they make their case?
Evidence.
Evidence.
And you
Because
guys had mentioned that. I remember listening. It's been probably could have been a couple of months ago. I forget the dates on y'all's podcast, but it was you and Krista, and y'all were harping on the evidence. Like people are saying these
yes,
things.
yes,
Where is the evidence?
yes,
Because you
yes.
can say something, you can believe it. You have your opinion, but it's still your opinion, and it's not even a good opinion if you don't have evidence to support the position.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm sorry I
Charlie
cut you off there.
No, you're good. I would say on that Charlie Kirk assassination, right? Candace Owens has determined already that Tyler Robinson didn't do it, and ultimately it was the Jews. It's always the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of people who believe Candace, and like Candace is telling the truth, but what proof has she actually presented? Nothing of actual value or substance. She has no case. She doesn't even have a credible alternative shooter or suspect. She has nothing. But yet millions of people believe her um, without any tangible evidence to her theory, um, just a lot of speculation and connecting the dots and asking questions. Oh, that's another big one. The just asking questions. No, you ask questions to get to a truth. You don't just ask questions to keep asking questions. You never arrive at anything because what they're doing is they're trying to remain or maintain plausible deniability, and at the same time push you the way they want you to go.
It's like
No one
leading
believes.
questions with an attorney. You're just
Yes,
asking leading to get you
yes,
to land somewhere that they
land
want you
where
to
they
go
want
to,
you to
rather
land.
than where the truth where you need to be landed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so yeah, Candace wasn't just asking questions. She was leading you to a place or um a determination that she wanted you to have
Right.
through
Right.
those just asking questions. Tucker does the same thing, and so that was the frustrating part. It's because it's just dishonest. Just say what you mean. Say what you're thinking, throw your theory out there, and then back it up. But don't just do this whole I'm just asking questions and isn't this strange? And don't you find this odd? And it's just very dishonest. But what I was saying with the race stuff, if you read the articles, a lot of articles on race and systemic racism, they
Mhm.
all have like the same flow, I noticed. And what they do is they will typically start off talking about some historical injustice that truly did happen, right? They'll lay the case for historical injustice.
Like
And then
slavery in America.
slavery in
Something like
America,
there's your
Jim Crow, discrimination, whatever
right.
whatever it is that we know as an actual fact and happened. And then they will kind of fast forward to present day and talk about a particular issue. And without even making the case or tying the two things together, they've done it. And you just read the article and like, man, that is so messed up. I can't believe we're still dealing with, well, it just never ended. And it's like, did they prove that disparities in um I don't know, let's say reading levels,
Right.
right? It's directly affiliated with slavery. Like, did they really prove that in the article? Or is it an assumption, right? Um, that is unproven, but told to you in a way that makes you believe that there's this direct line from one to the other. And that's usually what they do. And I would get to the end of the article. I'm like, you didn't prove that. You just stated it and kind of went with it. And so it's just asking those kind of questions. And not just reading the article to read the article, understanding that the author of the article has a particular aim and goal.
Right.
Um, we can say an agenda. They don't have to be that strong. It's like watching a movie. It's not just a movie. The purpose of that movie is to teach a lesson. It's not just entertainment. Sometimes it's entertainment.
Right.
Stuff blew up. It was an action movie. It was fun.
But there's a
Good guys
worldview
won.
driving
Yes,
that
yes.
movie or
There's a
that
worldview
ad or
behind
that
it.
article or anything that
Yes,
you read. There's a worldview behind it, right?
yes, absolutely. And people just need to be aware of that. What is it that they're trying to convey and teach? It's not just a story. There's a lesson involved in it. There's a worldview behind it. And yeah, just asking those tough questions and really getting to the deeper level of what is it that the author is trying to say, convey, teach. Um, I hope people read my stuff that way. When I write, I'm writing with a particular worldview, and I'm trying to get you to understand something and see a problem. Here's a solution, or this is where we should land. Um, I don't really, hide it
Right.
very well.
Right.
It's pretty straightforward. But a lot of times people they don't pick up on it, and they just think that a lot of times people think the news, especially an article, is just kind of reporting something instead of making a case for something. And that's usually what they're doing. They're usually making a case or a statement or wrapping an opinion as a fact. Um, and they're not just reporting to you what's happening.
I remember
And
I used to be in the wealth management world, stock markets, and back then on my computer, you'd be watching the stock market and everything, and on the side they had the Dow Industrial Jones
uh-huh.
ticker, and all it
Yeah.
would do was it was like two sentences, terrorist attack in Paris, 56 people died, 100 injured. That was it. It just
Yep.
reported that. There was no commentary or
Yep.
opinion around it. Um, and I kind of appreciated that kind of news. Not the bad things I didn't like, obviously, but still, it was just these are the facts of what's happening. And we come in, you just watch every 30 seconds, it would refresh, and you'd get a new information. But now the editorial side of it is now we're going
Yep.
to shape an opinion wrapped around we're going to present a fact maybe, and then we're going to try to nudge or shape an opinion in a direction to where we
Yeah.
want somebody to land with their opinion. And then, okay, if you believe these things, eventually you start thinking in that direction, and then you'll act in that direction. You'll vote
Yes.
differently. You'll
Yeah.
buy different things. Your support for uh, you know a politician will rise and fall based on something you think is a fact when it's really just an opinion.
Yeah. Or it
It's
is
presented as fact.
or it's a tailored fact, like the Trump verifying people on both sides
Right.
clip,
That's a great
right?
example. Yeah.
Yeah. The way they clipped it and then the way they continuously told you uh what he said and it was completely not what he said. Even years later, Obama, it was during the last election cycle. And he was talking about Trump and he brought that up. I'm like, that's been debunked for years. That's not what he said. If you listen to the longer clip of what he
Right.
said, that is not what he said. But what did the news do? The news clipped it down to make it seem as if he said something that he didn't say. And then they constantly say it over and over again. And before you know it, you've accepted that as that is what happened. Um, and a lot of people I've seen like on social media say that was their wake up call because they believe that they saw that news clip. They believe that's what Trump said. They were outraged, couldn't believe he would say that. And then they saw the longer clip and it clicked with them that the media is lying to them. Like that was their wake up call. It's like, I can't
Right.
trust what I'm watching anymore. Right. And so I tell people all the time, like I stopped watching cable news, man, years ago. Um, I have a family member who's a producer on a conservative radio talk show,
Right.
and I was listening to it one day. This was many years. This was before Trump was elected, and so this had to be like 20. It was 2016, probably early 2016, and the host was just. This was before Trump was like leading in the poll, and Trump was like the big name. And this host was just going off, like pumping Trump up and all of this type of stuff. And I called my family member. I was like, "Is he a Trump guy?" Like, and he started laughing. And he was like, "I'll put it like this: at the end of the day, it's entertainment, right?
Right.
But that's not the way the people on the other side listening is seeing it. And so whether it's talk radio, whether it's cable news, you got to remember it's a show. It is a production. They're not just telling you the news. They are putting on a show. They're making it entertaining. It's for you to stay engaged, for you to keep listening, you know. And it might not be their true feelings or thoughts, but the whole point is in audience engagement. How do we keep people watching? How do we keep people clicking? And once you realize that is the business that they're in, you stop taking it so seriously, or stop just automatic believing whatever you're hearing or seeing is true.
Right.
Yeah, and just realize that these people, now it could be people you agree with, and you land with them, um, but at the same time, like I said, I used the Megyn Kelly thing as an example. Um, it's still a business. It is
Yes.
still a business, and audience capture is a real thing. And so, just being aware of not taking everything they say, even if it's your favorite host, don't take it as gospel just because they said it, you know?
Right. Right. Is because I on the propaganda information operations side of things, and you'd mentioned earlier you have foreign actors,
Oh,
do
absolutely.
it,
Yes.
trying to influence public opinion in the United States, but the media in the United States is obviously in the influence
Yep.
business.
Yeah.
How much is of what you see out there, and this is so subjective, how much of
Yeah.
of what you're seeing out there is Americans attempting to influence Americans through propaganda, and how much of it
Yes.
is foreign actors? I mean, is
Yeah.
what how do you discern? And
Yeah.
does it even really matter at the end of the day? Maybe not, but it's kind of helping people build that discernment measures. Like, wait a second,
Yeah.
somebody's trying to, if I see emotion leading in a video or
Mhm.
something on Instagram or a photo, I'm automatically, the antennas go up. I'm
Yes, will
like,
go up.
okay, they're
Yeah.
trying to get me to think a different way or
Yeah.
whatever. So
Yeah.
what do you think?
Yeah, I would say when it comes to social media, that's where you're going to find your foreign actors, your bots, your fake accounts, people stirring up stuff, people artificially boosting very controversial posts. That's what they use these bot farms for. Um, and so if it's something that's, and it could be either side of the aisle. If there's something they think is very controversial that's going to cause division in America, they will use their bots to automatically push this thing up the algorithm, right? So now everybody's saying, now it's got 1 million views, 3 million views, right? It's
Right.
people are talking, people are going back and forth and arguing with each other. And they're sitting back going, they're just happy about it,
Like Dr. Evil. It's like
Yes.
$1 billion make $1 billion.
um, I would say this in terms of local in the media inside America. I think we can all agree that journalism isn't what it used to be. Journalism isn't objective. Journalism isn't about seeking the truth and informing the public. Journalism today is very tied to activism.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, that's true.
and
Yeah.
and they are pushing their activism within the newsroom because the way activism works and the way this ideology of wokeness and all of this stuff works is whether you're a school teacher or whether you're a journalist, you're told to do the work. Like you have a role to play in bettering society and getting people to on this justice train and you know
Right.
and they're pushing the ideology through their occupation. And journalism is no different. Um, People believed it was in their civic duty to try to defeat Trump through like their media position, right? The things they wrote, the things they covered, how they covered it, whether they're going to give us honest take or not. It was all dependent upon, does this help or hurt him?
Right.
That's the best example of that is the cover up of Joe Biden's health decline. You
Yes.
Everyone saw it, but yet the media was silent until it couldn't be silent anymore after his debate performance was so bad. All of a sudden, they had to come out and say something at that point.
It forced their hand. And I remember seeing that. And although I disagree completely with pretty much all of Joe Biden, his positions, I mean, from a biblical worldview and as a Christian, I could still see, his life had value. He's a human
Yeah.
being created in God's image. And what kept coming to my mind, and this came from like working local outreach and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
and being a pastor, was this is elder abuse. Like, the man needs help and he's being pushed out there for political
Yep.
reasons. And then
Yep.
you leave him when he isn't able to carry out the mission that you want him to carry out. Then you kick him to the side and
Mm-hmm.
castigate him. And then you
Yep.
start making fun of him. And I'm like, I
It,
disagree with him, but that's unkind.
it
That's
is.
there's something wrong with that fundamentally. And that was just when you were explaining that, I'm sorry I interrupted your answer,
No,
but
you're good.
that's what came to mind,
Yeah.
was, yeah. So,
Yeah.
but,
Absolutely.
but back to the, inside the United States, the propaganda used
Mm-hmm.
against Americans. So we were talking
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. And, I was talking about how, journalism is activism. And I was using the Biden cover up as an example of that. Everyone knew. We knew just if you just watched Joe Biden for years, when he was looking for the woman at the event who had passed away months earlier, and he's calling for her in the room. He doesn't remember she died, right?
Right.
When he's lost on stage and Obama has to grab him by the arm and carry him. I'm like, this is an old elderly man. This man isn't running the country. But there was nothing written on it. There was nothing said about it because they knew he was in that condition and they were choosing to run him again anyway. Right.
Right.
And if the media was objective, the media would be exposing that, calling that out. Like, how can you run him? But what they did, they just stayed silent because they didn't want to ruin his chances of winning or their chances of winning.
Right.
Right.
Power.
That's what I'm talking about. It is not journalism anymore. It is not objective. Everyone has their team that they're playing for. And I say that I do think there are some media outlets that do a better job of being objective. I'm a fan of the free press, not saying everything they do. They're not, I mean, they're what we call classical liberal organization, right? But they're not down with the wokeness, and they're also not conservative. So even as a conservative, I kind of need it to help me not be in my echo chamber to a degree.
Sure.
But at the same time, they have very, very what we would call conservative views, because conservative views are kind of hand in hand with what I call common sense views.
Right.
Like men can't be women, stuff like that.
Men can't have babies.
It's a good idea for a nation to have strong borders. Like, it's stuff like that. That is, we call that conservative on the right, but it's really just common sense. And so, yeah, I think they do a good job. And then there are other organizations, like the Daily Wire, that is clearly conservative and on the right that I enjoy listening to. I'm not saying I agree with everything that Ben or Matt Walsh or whoever puts out, but in general,
what you're going to get with them.
I know what I'm getting,
Right.
And so, but when it comes to cable news, when it comes to networks, what we call legacy media, I don't engage in it. Even Fox News, I can't.
Right.
And I'm not saying no one on there is good or anything, but I just understand the business behind it,
Right. You guys had, you and Krista and I think Monique, and I keep referring back to y'all's because that's how much I listen to them. And earlier you talked about bots exerting influence, and those are fake accounts They're not
Yes.
real people. So
Yes.
folks that are listening to this understand what an internet bot is. They're fake
Okay.
accounts. They
Yeah.
get you to think a certain way, or they'll boost the number of likes or impressions on a post or a video. But you guys had talked about Nick Fuentes'
Yes.
uh, movement. I don't know
Uh-huh.
what that is, phenomena, and
Yeah.
and I think y'all had mentioned that a lot of that, and I agreed with it, but obviously I didn't have the evidence. It's more like I think I agree with that a lot of his positioning, and back to his version of America First,
Mm-hmm.
um, is that a lot of this is artificial, and that seems, because I know that there's a lot of young men who
Yeah.
listen to my podcasts, and we interact with them on campuses and stuff. So, what, how do you see that with a guy like Nick Fuentes? Like, this artificial, you see them come out of nowhere, like they're
Yeah.
fringe, and suddenly they're the center. Like,
Yeah.
how the heck does that happen, Kevin?
It is always that should always be a red flag when someone comes out of nowhere and all of a sudden they're like the talk of the town and they're just no, all of a sudden they got millions of followers and things like that. Because I can tell you, and as someone who is in the content creation space, as someone who posts, I just post what I believe,
Right.
it, it doesn't get a million views. It doesn't get in the algorithm. So how is someone like Nick Fuentes all of a sudden gets known? How does he get in the algorithms? Something is boosting him up, to get him those followers, to get him that attention. And that's where it came out. Someone did like an analysis behind it, and realized, because it's all about understanding how the algorithms of these different platforms work. And I forgot exactly the details behind it, but the way the bots were working was artificially, like he would post something and then they would kind of constantly repost it to get it in the algorithms and comment on it, and all of a sudden it got all this traction. But the majority of the accounts that are interacting with the post aren't real accounts. These aren't real people. They're
Right.
bots, right? And so he's been artificially boosted up. And then real people do end up following him or checking out his content.
Because he's
But
got so much interaction and likes and reposts that people are
yes,
like, oh, he must be an authority. We should
or
listen to him, or
yeah,
whatever.
or X goes, oh, this is really something that is important or getting a lot of traction. Let me boost it up, and now it's in everybody's feed. So now everybody's seeing a Nick Fuentes, or if you fit the certain demographic that they think that would appeal to you, it's like, hey, here, you might like this. This is what's going on right now, and so now all of a sudden, all these young guys are seeing him in their feed, or all these conservatives all of a sudden are seeing Nick Fuentes in their feed, and yeah, but the way he's getting there, or the way he got there, because now he's there, but the way he got there, it was through artificially boosting up his post. And so, yeah, but the question is who's
Yeah,
doing it?
that's the next question, because it's all incentives, and then who benefits. Because when I
Uh-huh.
read an article, I'm like, okay, did they prove their point? Similar to you, is like, what's the evidence? And
Hmm.
then, okay, who's the beneficiary of this article or this post? And trying to figure that out is like herding
Yeah.
cats. Like, you really can't. It's like finding a needle in a haystack. But you have a background in trying in understanding that realm. And I don't think every Christian has to be an expert on
Yeah.
intelligence, but I think asking the right questions. And then if you, let's just back to Nick Fuentes, let's say, a parent or grandparent's concerned about their son getting swept up in this stuff. They see them heading down this direction, but then they don't have the evidence or the ability. All they are
Hmm.
doing is arguing about the idea. Like, well, Nick
Yeah.
Fuentes isn't a good guy. You shouldn't be listening to him. Well, why?
Yeah.
Why, mom?
Yeah.
So what do you do? Because that's a thing. Parents are
It
concerned,
is.
grandparents are concerned about their kids and grandkids getting swept up in something that's not biblical, but not as, that could be called evil or bad. And so,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts?
Once again, be careful of people who are appealing to emotions. Nick Fuentes does a great job of appealing to emotions. You're the victim, right? It is the same things we saw with BLM. It is creating, it's the oppressor oppressed dynamic, just with a
Applied
different
to
group. Yeah,
inverse
just applied to a
direction.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now if you're a young white man, then you're the victim now. You're the oppressed. And so be very leery of people who are always trying to paint you in as an oppression narrative. And then, and oh, by the way, here's your oppressor. This is who you need to be aware of, right?
Give you somebody to hate and
Yep.
focus your anger and rage at.
Yes. And I've addressed several other people on social media who are using that, who use the name pastor or the title pastor, but is using that same dynamic to boost their own profiles, right?
Yeah.
And they don't care that they're making young white men angry, and because that's what they want. They want it's it's really sad because we talk about the woke left, which is just Marxist revolutionary ideas and tactics. Well, the right is using some of the same ideals. They want these young men to rise up against the current society and to break away from the current oppressive systems, which they would say is controlled and run by the Jews and feminism and all of
Right.
this type of stuff,
Right.
right? But they're using the same playbook and the same tactics.
So they'll
And
end up
as
in the same place, which is destroying
tear
our
it down.
civilization.
Yeah, tear it down. It's the same thing. Yes, you're
Right.
absolutely right. Um, and anyone who's not willing to tear it down, they dismiss. That's why they turned on Trump, because
Yeah.
Trump is doing a lot of good in terms of tearing down the bureaucracy in DC, what we call the deep state and things like that. But he wasn't doing what they wanted him to do in Israel. And so to them, that is the golden statue they want torn down. And because he wasn't willing, all of a sudden it's like, well, MAGA is that was they said, MAGA is dead. It's all about America first now, you know. But in terms of people who are concerned about their young boys, I think it's you have to um so I'm really aware of the issues. And so you have to kind of affirm some of the things that are out there in terms of, yeah, there is an ideology out there, and there is there was for a period of time a movement and an incentive to disenfranchise young white men as being privileged.
Sure.
Um, and we should um, fight against that. But at the same time, you cannot see yourself as a victim. You cannot take that as an identity, and you cannot believe that not only defies you, but it is everywhere all around you, right? Because prime example, as a black guy, I can say racism exists. But if I believe every situation I walk in, if I believe every time I don't succeed or get something that the reason for that is racism, then that's not a healthy way. That's not a healthy approach, right? And so young white men have to resist the same temptation that the world is against them and everyone is against them, and and just building up that if you're being manipulated to be in a constant state of anger and frustration, that should be a red flag to you. Because that is not helpful for you. Anyone who knows anything about being successful will tell you, if you just sit around and you're angry, bitter, moping, you believe you don't have agency anymore, you don't control, then you will end up where you it's a self-fulfilling prophecy,
That's
right?
right.
And so I would tell young men, anyone who is pushing that to you, you don't need to listen to, because only thing they're doing is manipulating you for their own purposes, right? BLM was manipulating everybody for their own purposes. They had a different agenda, and it had nothing to do with police shootings or black people. That was just what they were using to boost up their own, to get money. So like Nick Fuentes is making a lot of money, right?
Right.
And if I'm making a lot of money, it's hard for me to say don't do what I'm doing, even if it's very divisive and it's having very negative effects on young men. I get to hang out with Kanye. I get to go do this. Like, I'm a nobody. I'm a 5'3" nobody, and yet here I am, the king on the block. I got millions of followers. I'm hanging out with all the right wing celebrities. I'm going back and forth with TPUSA. Like, I'm important now. Why
Right.
would he ever stop that? Right? He's incentivized to do it. Even if it has negative effects on society, on the nation, um, it's all, it's greed to a degree, and so yeah, just people just need to realize that your favorite choose your influencers well is what I'll say.
Hmm.
And I'm saying that as someone who is considered an influencer. Like, what we do, we try to influence people, but
Absolutely.
uh
Influence people biblically in a
yes,
wise and a godly manner. We should
yes,
be good. Christians should be the best influencers on the planet.
yes, yeah,
We're in the influence business and we shouldn't be bashful about that or hide it. Is like, no, we want to influence the world for Christ. We want people to believe the gospel. We want people to believe that what we're saying about the Bible and Jesus Christ and God and truth is true about,
yes,
we want, that's good influence, not
it is.
to be used the other way.
It is, and it comes down to motives, right? And you can see some of these people, their motives aren't pure. Their motives are, like I said, once you understand the algorithms and how they work, and like, if I say the most shocking thing, it's going to get a lot of attention, and it's going to be good for me. That's what people
Right.
do. They'll tweet out something like, "Women are retarded and shouldn't be ever be in leadership," right? That's going to stir up something, right?
Right.
But that's the point, you
Like
know.
be as provocative as possible,
Be as
regardless of the
provocative as you
harm
can.
or destruction it causes,
Yep.
just to feed your own platform or
Yep.
agenda,
Yeah.
which then goes
Because
all the way back to self and idolatry. It's like, okay, here we go again. Here's
yeah.
sin raising its ugly head in the life of an influencer.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's tough because I can be like, okay, I'm a Christian conservative. I consider myself, I'm a complementarian,
Hmm.
even though that's a dirty word now. Even for the right, that's not far enough. I believe in male headship, put it like that.
Sure.
Um, but at the same time, I can be like, that tweet was unnecessary and wrong.
Hmm.
Like, you don't have to, it's just it's one of those things of like, I agree with you doctrinally, but the way you're going about it is very divisive and unhelpful, right? And you're just really giving everyone a bad name because you're trying to bring about enough anger within young men for them to rebel and take the culture back. Essentially what they're doing.
Right.
And it's very similar to, not to go down this road, but it's very similar to, what the civil rights movement did with young people.
Hmm.
You rile people up, you get them angry, you send them out into the streets to march and protest, to bring about change. And for the longest time, the political right never engaged in that type of activity and tactics. But very smart people have said, you know what? If it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. And if it's worked over there, then you know what? It can work for us. And we can take these same tactics that we've been fighting against, and now we can use them for ourselves. It's like the
Rules for
analogy.
radicals has now become
Yep.
rules for Republicans.
Yes.
Maybe.
And the great analogy I heard is like Lord of the Rings, and you got the ring, and
Mhm.
instead of throwing it into the fire, you decide I can use it for my own power. Right? That's what they're doing.
Exactly.
That
And
is
in
what
the
they're doing.
whole, that's why I love not get on a tangent with Lord of the Rings, but my son and I love it. I mean, we are
Yeah.
constantly reading it and listening to it, but it's, the whole saga is about not consuming something. It's actually throwing it away in
Yeah.
an environment where everything is about what you can build. This was actually throw away the most powerful thing that you
Powerful.
possibly can. And
Yeah.
but that's true. It's the ring.
Yeah. It
Back to
is.
Tolkien. He was right.
Yeah. And so that's what's going on. And we can have a larger conversation about what I call the battle of worldviews, which I really think is like the big picture of what's going on,
Yeah.
from a Christian standpoint. I think we're seeing just overall in culture and society, there's a battle going on between what we would call a biblical worldview, which Western civilization is founded upon,
Right.
and a Marxist worldview, which is trying to tear it down, right?
Mhm.
I think that's the ultimate fight that we're seeing, regardless of the area we're seeing it in. That's really what the fight is. It is a biblical worldview versus a Marxist worldview. Whether it's race, gender, sexuality, queer theory, all of these things, it's just a Marxist ideology in a different form. And the whole point is to tear down the norms of our society. And what are our norms of our society built upon? They're built upon a Christian and biblical worldview. And so that's really what the fight is. If you just really your audience want to know what is really going on in America, that's
Yes.
what's going on in America. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's awesome, because that's true, because if you can get down to the fundamentals of what is driving the worldview, and whether you're seeing, the queer theory, or whether it's race Marxism or gender
Mhm.
Marxism or whatever it is, it's like at the core of it, the movement, they'll put it in a different wrapper. The
Yep.
issue's never the issue. The issue is always the revolution. And then, okay, what's
All right,
underneath it?
James
Oh,
Lindsay.
yeah. Well, I forget who said that. He stole that from somewhere. I stole that from Alan, somebody. I forget
But it's
who it
so
was.
true. It's
But
so
it's
true.
true. And
Yeah.
then the cannon fodder, they just use, whatever victim group as cannon fodder,
Yep.
whether it's black people or
Yep.
gays or trans or whatever. Then they'll take that victim group, and then they're just cannon fodder, but they don't really care. I mean,
No.
Marxists don't care. They
It's
want
all
power.
about revolutionary change. That's
Yeah,
all it's about.
they want power. And you're exactly right, because we're really only dealing fundamentally. Now you could throw, Islam in there a little
Yeah.
bit, but I don't think the two major, you're right, spot on. The main battle in the United States, in America, is between the biblical worldview and Marxism. I
Yep.
mean, if you
Yeah.
can get that, then the different shades and colors and flags
Doesn't
don't
matter.
really matter. You
Nope.
can be like, okay, that's just Marx. Here comes Marx again.
Yep.
He keeps resurrecting these ideas, and they're terrible. Uh, but man, I really appreciate it. I'm glad we can laugh about this stuff, and it is important. But as
Absolutely.
Christians, we have to be able to have some joy in the battle, be merry warriors as we help, our brothers and sisters have that grounded biblical worldview. And really, I think this has been really helpful for me, and I know it will for others. Having some clarity, and like you said, slow down, just
Yeah.
tap the brakes. Step
Yeah.
away, and then start thinking critically about what you're seeing before you form the opinion and jump on a
Yes.
bandwagon that 6 minutes later or 6 months later you're going to regret.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but this has been super helpful. So as we kind of wrap up, Kevin, give us your social media handles. We've talked a lot about Center for Biblical Unity, but you're obviously on
Yeah.
X. You have a Substack. I've been following your Substack. What else? Where else are you where people can
Yeah.
connect with you?
So Facebook, Instagram, pretty much anything except, well, I just got on TikTok.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I know.
Oh
I
my
know.
gosh.
And I say I'm on there, like I created an account because one thing Substack does is if you go live on Substack and you do a video, it just automatically makes these little really cool clips.
It
And
does.
that you might have seen that I posted recently, like on Facebook and Instagram. And I was like,
Let
I
me
got
stop you right there, because your
uh-huh,
Substack, I watched your Substack live this has been a week ago, or maybe it was a
uh-huh.
week and a half ago.
Yeah.
And that actually inspired me to I'd not done a Substack live. I was like, I don't know how to do it. And I was just too concerned. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a second. I'm just going to try it.
Yeah.
No one's going to see it anyway. So what do I care? I was just like, let's try this. But it was really helpful. I started doing these fireside chats, done two of them,
Yeah.
but it was thanks to your live, because I knew you and trust you. I was like, okay,
Mhm.
I see how this works. So
Yeah.
any event, back
Yeah.
to Substack, and now you're on
It made
TikTok.
these cool little clips. And I have been saying that I need to get on TikTok just because it's a mission field that a lot of us aren't in. And I was like, you know what? I got these little clips. They're perfect little TikTok things. I'll just make an account and post them. And so that's what I started doing. Like I said, I'm not really active on there. I'm just trying to push the little content over there to maybe reach some people the old people like us are on Facebook. right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm trying to, okay,
40 and over is Facebook.
yes, we're
Everybody else
Facebook.
is.
Yeah. But
At
I would
least
just
you're
tell
not on
everybody,
MySpace anymore or
oh my
Friendster.
goodness, I
I don't.
know. But in terms of like, I tell everybody, I think I'm the only Kevin Briggins in the world. So if they just Google my name, you will find every social media account and article I've written will pop up, kind of deal, you know. And so yeah, if you just Google my name, you'll find me.
Well, I appreciate it, and yeah, your Substack's been great as well because you post that. The great thing about the Substack, and I'll brag on them, is because it's not slop, it's not this dumpster
Yes.
fire yet.
Yes.
Hopefully, it stays this way. But if you really do follow people and you subscribe, whether it's free or paid, and all
Yep.
those things, that you will get their content.
Yes.
And that's what I appreciate because I follow and subscribe to the people that I want to hear from,
Yeah.
and you're one of those folks. So I appreciate all that you're doing. Please tell the team over at Center for Biblical Unity I said hello and God
Will
bless
do.
them, and thank you for all your work, and we'll hopefully talk to you soon because I've got more questions we never even got to, man. So
just let me know.
okay,
We're glad
well,
to
I
do it.
appreciate it.